What's up guys, welcome to Vintage Genetics, where it is all about classic bodybuilding. And yes, you can see me cooking right here using coconut oil in my Italian vegetables in that wok. Right there, stir frying it with some spices, some Cajun spices, and in the pan next to it there is some rice cooking away and some fish steaming away. 4 beautiful fishes with a lot of protein. Right now I'm eating my second meal of the day, but I woke up kind of late because, I usually have my first meal around in between 8 or 10 a.m., but I woke up later than that. So that means that I cannot keep to my regular schedule of eating every 2 to 3 hours. I have to narrow it down. Or you improve your meals by adding a little more nutrients to it. But do this in a smart way. Now, for example, right here, I have my second meal, which would be my third meal right now. My first meal was my breakfast. I just upped the carbs by about 25%, up the protein powder a little bit more. It's oatmeal with whey protein. But this meal is rice, put in 125 grams of dry rice, 200 grams, well actually 150 grams of vegetables. I lower the amount of vegetables to be able to eat more calories. And then I added an oven fish, which yields about 50 grams of protein, which is more protein than I usually have in one meal. So this is what I do basically to increase the meal caloric value, macronutrients, in order to still meet my macros every single day. And it's off season, so that's why I'm able to eat an oven fish like this with herbs on top of it. It's just a little more tasty. I like trying this stuff out. I love to cook. I love to experiment with food, and I like to really, I'm one of those guys who goes to the grocery store and basically looks at the products for a long time and be interested by everything that's there. Every time I enter a new grocery store, it's like, what do they have here? And then, I like to experiment with different ingredients that I don't know yet. But a lot of people don't have the time for that or the interest for that, so that's why rice, fish, broccoli, stuff like that is usually used. Anyway, I'm going to enjoy this meal right now. Alright, as you can see, it is 4:30. So I work out around 7 usually, and I want to eat at least 2 hours before working out. So I'm making my last meal right now. Something easy to digest because I'm doing legs, hamstrings, and I don't like to work a big muscle group on a full stomach. So I want it fully digested. So let me show you what I'm making. Right here, just some simple vegetables, and you can see the oil that I use right there is coconut oil, extra virgin, organic coconut oil. I'm gonna use about 10 grams of that. So the difference is between this oil and the regular one is that there's MCT oil in here, and that means it's medium chained fatty acids, and that means that it's absorbed much faster by your body and used as energy more simply, because the conversion of MCT fats to energy is a lot simpler than long chain fats that you see in animal fats or olive oil, for example. So that's why I like to use coconut oil at least before training. And this is Italian vegetables, and here we've got 100 grams of white rice cooking away. White rice, why? I want it to absorb quickly into my system. And in the fridge I already have my fish done, my white fish, which is also very fast. That is digested in my stomach, and then we will be powered for the workout. Alright guys, this is my meal before the workout. It's a simple meal because I want it to be digested before I work out, at least most of it, so that it doesn't bother me during the workout. So let me show you. What we have right here is my old traditional dish of white rice, vegetables, coconut oil, but the fish
which is white fish, as you can see in chunks there. I just mix it through, then put it in the pan, stir fry everything together, and it's very delicious. And of course I add some turmeric, some Cajun spices, and some salt to make it even more incredible. Listen to that, a drill. That's my cue to eat right now. See you in the workout.
Alright, it is time for the hamstring workout. Some of you might not know, but on a Monday I usually do quads and calves, and on a Thursday usually hamstrings and calves. It's not entirely hamstrings or quads on either of those days, but I start out with an isolation movement to really pre-exhaust that particular muscle group, and then using different foot positions to target the hamstrings. For example, today we're starting out with the laying leg curl, and to me this is pretty much the best exercise for hamstrings. What you want to do is you want to try to keep your body straight on the pad below you, as straight as possible, because if you let your butt go up too high, you will work your glutes more and your hamstrings less, and what you want to work is your hamstrings. If you're not able to do this, then lower the weight.
That was easy.
Now I like to go pretty heavy on these hamstring curls. Why? Because it has been proven that hamstrings respond very well to heavy weights, and especially on the negative. So if you can tell, on the negative I try to go down a little slower than on the positive motion. So always do as heavy as you can handle eccentrically. A lot of people use momentum to get up, and then they don't realize that they don't have the strength to actually lower the weight with control. And you need control in order to properly contract all those hamstring muscles and to let them respond for muscle growth. Now, as I said, I first start out with an isolation movement for the hamstrings, and then I move on to an exercise that targets the hamstrings mostly. And for me, that is this exercise, the reverse hack squat. You should definitely try this one out if you do the hack squats already, or if you don't like the regular hack squat, because it really does feel different. To me, the regular hack squats really target the quads a lot. That's pretty much all I feel. But in this exercise, the hamstrings and the glutes are really involved in the motion. And as far as the depth should go, I think 90 degrees in this exercise is pretty good. The range of motion is really shortened because it's a reverse hack squat. The regular hack squat I go a lot deeper, but now it's simply not possible without bending the back too much. So using the heavier weights, it is recommended to wear a belt. I personally don't wear a belt. I don't like the feeling of it. I like to be able to breathe deeply. So even when I go pretty heavy, like right here, which is heavier than I can go on the regular hack squat, so you know the hamstrings are stronger than the quads, the glutes are stronger than the quads, so you know that doing it like this targets more of the hamstrings and the glutes. The regular hack squat is truly like a front squat for the quads, the front of the legs. And when you go up on this exercise, you really want to be able to contract the glutes. So stretch your legs, extend them, but extend your hips forward as well a little bit so you can contract your glutes so they are involved in the entire exercise, even at the very top. And then it is time for the leg press. Now normally I would do a wide stance leg press, which means wider than shoulder width, but I decided to do it on the inside because I want to work on the sweep of the quads. But if you still want to work the hamstrings as much as possible, you put your feet a little higher than usual on the leg press, because then your hamstrings are more involved and the stretch on the glutes will be greater.
Vintage genetics, guys.
You know, in the past I really didn't used to go so heavy on the leg press. I used to think, well, on the squat you can go heavy. The leg press, a lot of people put a lot of plates on there, but it's really no use. But one of the things that Arnold said that he had to do more is put more weight on the leg press, do more sets with it, and do more sets with squats to bring up his legs. So he thought that his legs could have been better if he had done that, and that kind of motivated me to keep pushing forward, keep doing heavier. If you can do 10 reps with the leg press, just go heavier, but at least go 90 degrees though. And then a training principle which I advise you guys to try out sometime is start out with an isolation movement and end with an isolation movement. So I started with the lying leg curl, which is an isolation movement for the hamstrings, then 2 compound movements, 2 presses, and then another isolation for the hamstrings, the seated hamstring curl. And what you can really see me do is go up slowly. Again, the negative of the motion should be quite slow on isolation movements for the hamstrings. Studies have proven that the eccentric motion on the hamstrings, really forcing the hamstrings to contract and lengthen at the same time, which is the negative portion of the rep, then the hamstrings will respond to growth the most. And personally, I think my hamstrings have improved tremendously well. I'm exaggerating a little bit. The hamstring drop from the side has been better. It's better now, and I'm very happy with that. All my work that I'm doing is actually working for the hamstrings. The triceps, which were a weak point of mine as well, have come up quite nicely. So I'm happy that prioritizing these muscle groups actually improves them relative to the other muscle groups, right? So it's not like the other muscle groups stop growing when you start focusing on the weak points. The weak points will just grow faster. And by the way, after this isolation movement we did before this, the seated hamstring curl, I decided to stretch the hamstrings out once more. And by the way, this is an isolation movement as well. This is called the good mornings. What you basically want to do is keep your legs straight, just like you would on a stiff-legged deadlift, except the weight is now on your neck instead of in front of you. So you have to bend forward and balance the weight just like you would on a squat, but you will feel the stretch in your hamstrings, and when you feel the maximum stretch, that's when you go back up and you contract the glutes at the same time to make it a complete exercise. And then it is time to work the calves, which cannot be big enough in my opinion, unless your quads are very much behind. But we all know Big Ramy, you know, he has big legs, but his calves are a little behind, and it just shows. His calves are pretty big if you just look at them individually, but compared to his legs, they are not. So always train your calves as hard as you train your legs. Now the first calf exercise is on the horizontal leg press with your feet close to each other, because what I want to improve on my calves is the outside sweep. The inside is pretty much developed, but the outside needs a little more mass. And when you put your feet close to each other, you work the outside. When you put your feet apart, you work the inside. So that's how you decide how to work the calves. And lastly, but not least, the individual calf press with one leg only, and this makes it more than twice as hard in my opinion. 2 calves are like 2.5 times as strong as one, because they work together. Now what I'm doing right here, you can see the inside contracting as well, but the outside is what I'm really working. You will see that right now. The outside of the calf is what is supposed to be worked. As you can see, it's stretching and contracting. These are the 2 parts you want to experience during this exercise. Always a full range of motion on the calves. Alright guys, I just got home from working out, working the hamstrings mostly as you saw, and they feel destroyed right now. And in order to resurrect the destroyed hamstrings, we need proper nutrition. So let's take a look at what I'm making right now for after working out. But what I do right after working out is 35 grams of whey protein it has been proven that adding fast carbs to your whey protein doesn't increase the amount of amino acids or the speed that it's absorbed into the cells. It's the same. It was an old study that thought that was the case, but a new study, more relevant study, recent study, tells you that it's not the case, that just taking protein by itself after working out, right after working out, is the most effective thing. Adding carbs won't matter unless you have another training within 8 hours after your first training. So if you don't, if you go to bed or if you don't train that day, do anything that day that's physically demanding, you don't need to recover with carbs. So your glycogen stores will recover from post-workout meal that can be an hour later, which I'm doing right now. So let me show you.
Alright, we've got some oil cooking away. This is about 8 grams of cocoa nut oil. We've got 150 grams of wild rice in here, mixed with white rice. Let me show you. See, there's some wild in there, a little bit of fibers, and in here I'm actually going to put these things, vegetarian hamburgers. I like doing this after working out. As I said, I already ingested my protein, so there's protein in here for sure, but it's mostly soy protein, in which the leucine content is lower. But I'll show you guys what I do to increase the leucine content. But first, man, it's smoking a lot in here. I'm gonna add some onions.
Yeah, some onions, yeah. That made a little more sound than I anticipated, so you cannot hear my voice. But I'm gonna let these onions sweat out in the pan, release the flavors, and then add those little hamburgers for extra spice.
So this is 200 grams of those hamburgers, contain about 15 to 16 grams of protein per 100 grams, so that's 32 grams of protein. You know, any meal above 30 grams to me is plenty enough. And here I've got the 150 grams of wild rice, steaming off, making it nice and dry. I like having a dry rice grain, you know, instead of the sticky mess. And yeah, this is gonna taste amazing. And I've got my leek right here, which I also made in the air fryer, the Active Fry. Added a little bit of coconut oil to make it not stick to the sides as much, at least. And yeah, I'm gonna add this, which is a very nice flavor in contrast to the onions, and that will make it a beautiful meal. Guys, I always tell you, enjoy your food. If you have to eat a lot, you might as well invest and make it tasty. Okay, so this is the final product. And guys, don't forget, which is almost the most important part, the spices. I add some Cajun spices in there, some turmeric, which is very good antioxidant, by the way. That's why the rice is yellow, so it gives it a more appealing look. And some garlic, which is good for blood pressure and the heart, but fresh garlic is always better, of course. But yeah, this makes the meal taste so much better, and you will be able to eat a lot more if you have trouble eating. Look at that. Pretty nice shoes, eh? These are rider wears, and a lot of people have been asking what kind of shoes these are. And you can see rider wear, and they're very comfortable. They have a flat sole, so they're very good for leg workouts. I also have squatting shoes which have an elevated heel to be able to squat deeper, especially when you're a tall guy. And I am a fan of these high top shoes. Now, I've had these over a year now, and they're the quality is very high, and they're still snug like they were at the start. And yeah, I have my shoe up in my desk because on the floor the lighting isn't as good. Anyway, but you can get these shoes if you're Dutch at bodyandfashionstore.com. And if you're in America, you'll have to find the Riderwear store somewhere. Pretty sure you can find it. Right, guys, it's the next day now, and I just went in a cryo chamber, which is a cryotherapy. It really lowers the degrees to minus 170 Celsius or minus 270 Fahrenheit. And it was pretty cold. They say it helps recover your muscles better after working out. A lot of top athletes here in the Netherlands use it already, like the ice skaters and the hockey team, for example. So I wanted to give it a try, and I did feel better when I got out. They say you lose about 500 up to 500 calories in one session. Well, didn't feel like that, but hey, that will be a nice benefit if it happens. But yeah, it's a little bit expensive to do because it's only 3 minutes, but you can only last 3 minutes in there. Any longer and it might be dangerous, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Would I recommend it? Well, if you can get a deal like we did, I would recommend you try it out because it's pretty cool to just experience. You do feel better after it, and I'm pretty sure that it will aid in recovery because of the science that's behind it. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and there's a lot more coming. I have a lot of ideas in my head and written down. And don't forget to stay golden.